Welcome and good evening, everyone. This meeting of the Lake Oswego City Council is now called to order. Mr. Halquist, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Buck.
Here.
Councilors Verdict.
Here.
Raff.
Here.
Mboop.
Here.
Mans. Wen.
Here.
Wenland.
Here. Okay, thank you. And now everyone, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Well, first on the agenda tonight is public comment. And first up, we have Dorothy Atwood. Or are you two presenting together? Come on up. Dorothy Atwood and Lisa Adato. Welcome to you both. Please.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start. My name is Lisa Adato. Please let me know if you can't hear me. I've never given testimony with a mask before. I'm here representing the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network. And I have to take deep breaths between every sentence.
No, you're just fine.
Our mission is to promote sustainable practices in Lake Oswego following a triple bottom line, creating a safe and clean environment while maintaining a prosperous and equitable society. We look to solutions that are practical and consistent with our Lake Oswego lifestyle. And I'm here today to comment on the city's plan for the new wastewater treatment plant. We appreciate the city's openness to hearing our ideas and to their willingness to work with our organization. I'd like to thank in particular Anthony Hooper for his regular communication and his responsiveness in looking at options that would improve the environmental footprint. Having said that, we are disappointed in the plan that we have seen. We don't think that it makes sustainability enough of a priority. The plan rejects many of the major options that other cities have used to reduce their environmental footprint. We do appreciate that the plan makes reference to some possible methods that the city could use to reduce plant's emissions, but these ideas don't go far enough and are not included in the current plan or in the plan budget. They're put to the side for some type of later consideration. And Dorothy will talk more specifically about this. We urge the city of Lake Oswego to commit to getting as close as possible to a net zero energy plan and to go forward with ways to reduce water use. Environmental impacts have never been more important. With the fires and heat waves of 2021 showing us the real dangers of untrammeled global warming, reducing greenhouse gas emissions must be a priority. The wastewater treatment plant is a significant source of emissions. Typically, a wastewater treatment plant is a city's biggest energy users. Wastewater treatment plants produce methane and nitrous oxide, which are both much more dangerous than carbon emissions. There are multiple ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and the city of Lake Oswego could choose among them following other cities' examples. We believe that the city has set some preconditions, particularly space, that are guiding many of the decisions present in the proposal that you'll hear today. But we believe the city should relook at some of those preconditions because some of them preclude the kind of reductions that we would like to see. In short, we would like to see the city do more to reduce the environmental footprint of the wastewater treatment plant, one of the biggest sources of emission that the city has control over. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm Dorothy Atwood. I'm also with the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network. And as Lisa said, we've been following this project since the early spring, and we've been impressed with the dedication of the city staff and the consulting team, and particularly Anthony. It's clear from the staff report that you have in front of you that our comments that we provided to them in May have been evaluated and discussed. We applaud them for choosing an energy-efficient process, and it was encouraging to see that they are looking at the possibility of biosolid residual for energy production, as well after the completion of the basic plant, and water reuse, which is a critical resource, as we know, in the parks. That said, we were disappointed with the overarching message of what can't be done to make the plant more sustainable and closer to net zero. We encourage the council to direct staff to make this a priority and look closely at what can be done. Specifically, we asked City Council to direct the wastewater treatment plant project team to revisit the constraints that Lisa talked about, both space and cost, the affordability threshold. The decision to limit the plant's footprint to 6 acres may be precluding more sustainable options. Is 6 acres all that can be developed? What's been done to investigate other nearby properties? Can land from the existing site be planned and committed to stage future sustainability features in the future? The affordability threshold, how was that created? Is that truly a reflection of what our community wants? This is a once in a half a century opportunity. You have created we have a climate action plan that has all sorts of opportunities. A wastewater treatment plant is far and away the largest opportunity that this city, that this council will have the opportunity to address in terms of greenhouse gas reduction. So how was that created, and how can we look at some flexibility there? So evaluating options for getting closer to net zero plants. There's the biosolids energy generation, which we talked that the staff report addresses but doesn't commit to. Heat extraction from incoming waste, supplementing with solar. And so there's all sorts of sustainability options that we would like to see you evaluate. And we'd like those, thirdly, to have those options a definite part of the plan, planned and committed by the city to go forward with those. So we're concerned in this time of climate crisis that the city may be missing its best opportunity in this half century for climate action. They are, as Lisa said, the largest source of emissions, and the city has committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in its climate action plan. And likely this is the best opportunity to do so in a big and lasting way. So finally, my ask is that City Council, you give your amazing city staff permission to be creative and build a legacy project for future generations of Lake Oswegians. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. I understand that you are meeting with the city team later this week.
That's correct.
Wonderful. And we appreciate the dialogue. And I just would be remiss if I didn't point out that what wasn't, you mentioned many, good ideas, and we received your correspondence, but that it wasn't pointed out that the project itself, the new plant, is much more energy efficient, just the technology that's being used. So it's a good thing to point out, just
Correct.
the project itself.
Actually, I did state that, but that's okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
But
Huge.
I
Yes.
agree, yeah.
Yeah, so we're moving in a good direction. I think we're on the same page, and we appreciate and want to continue a collaborative dialogue with you all to build a great project.
Thank you, Mayor Buck.
Thank you so much. Okay, so now as we come into this month of October, every year, October, well, not since the beginning of time, but in recent history, October is Lake Oswego Meals on Wheels Month. And I have a proclamation to read here in regards to that. October is Lake Oswego Meals on Wheels Month. There is a need to assure that no senior goes hungry or suffers from social isolation in Lake Oswego. The need for home-delivered meals will only increase, as nearly 44% of Lake Oswego's residents are age 50 and older, and 95% of seniors want to remain independent in their own homes as they age. This program was started in Lake Oswego in 1972 by 7 local churches. The city of Lake Oswego memorialized its commitment to Meals on Wheels in 2004 by partnering with the nonprofit board, Lake Oswego Meals on Wheels, and the program engages 155 Lake Oswego volunteers in meaningful service to others. There are more than 18,000 nutritionally balanced meals made from scratch served annually to senior and disabled Lake Oswego residents each year. So now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Lake Oswego City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Meals on Wheels Month in Lake Oswego. I urge our community to celebrate older adults as well as the Lake Oswego Meals on Wheels program that supports healthy aging in Lake Oswego. And the Meals on Wheels folks put together a great community partnership with many stores and restaurants in town to raise money for the program during the month of October. And I know they have more information out there somewhere on that, and how folks can participate, but we applaud their efforts and their partnership with the city. It's great. Okay. All right. So now we have a couple annexation hearings today. And to kick us off on the public hearing protocol, I'll ask Mr. Luce to take us through the procedures, please.
Thank you, Mayor. These land use requests involve the application of criteria and standards listed in the staff report, which is available from staff or on the table in the back of the room. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable criteria as listed in the staff report or such other criteria contained within the Lake Oswego Comprehensive Plan and land use regulations which you believe apply to the decision. Please identify to the council the criteria or standards you are addressing so that council may consider your testimony in relation to the applicable criteria or standards. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements of evidence sufficient to afford the City Council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the City Council to respond to the issue of preclude an action for damages in circuit court. The public hearing process is as follows. Up to 20-minute presentation by staff. Individuals will be allowed up to 5 minutes. Recognized neighborhood associations, 10 minutes. Applicants rebuttal, 5 minutes. At this time, I'll ask if any member of the council has had any ex parte contacts or has any financial conflicts of interest or other biases.
No. Anyway, no.
No. Does it count if I'm actually looking it up on maps right now?
No. You just identified that, I guess. It's yeah. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Luce. All right, Mr. Espy, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Buck. Mayor Buck, members of the council, we have before us this evening 2 properties being considered for annexation, one at 16441 Bonaire Avenue and the other at 13201 Knaus Road. Both of these annexations are being reviewed as public hearings. This property is located at 16441 Bonaire Avenue, and the proposed annexation is owner-initiated, will result in the addition of approximately 0.23 acres of residential property to the city. The property is currently under Clackamas County's jurisdiction, and it is zoned low-density residential on their comprehensive plan and zoning maps. It is designated R7.5 on the city's comprehensive plan map, and will be zoned R7.5 upon annexation. The sanitary sewer is available from an 8-inch public sanitary sewer main located in Bonaire Avenue that was recently constructed along the site frontage. And water is available from a 6-inch Lake Grove Water District line in Bonaire Avenue. And this property will remain in the Lake Grove Water District and will continue to be a Lake Grove Water District customer after the property has been annexed. Future extension of the water lines, if needed to serve future development, will be constructed and maintained in accordance with the city's water system master plan and also the LGWD standards, which are pretty much the same. Nearest existing fire hydrant is outlined in blue on the corner of Madrona Avenue and Bonaire. This property is located at 13201 Knaus Road. This one is also owner initiated and will result in the addition of approximately 1.98 acres of residential land to the city. The plan and zone designation, property is currently under Clackamas County's jurisdiction and is zoned low-density residential. The properties are designated R10 on the city's comprehensive plan and will be zoned R10 upon annexation. Sanitary sewer service is available from a City of Lake Oswego 8-inch collection line located in Knaus Road near the northeast corner of the site. And the city requires sewer extensions to be taken from the upstream property line when the connection is made to the public main. If one replacement home is constructed and the property is not partitioned, then a single service lateral will be allowed to connect into the existing main line immediately downstream from the existing manhole located near the northeast corner of the site. But if they partition, then it would need to be located on the uphill or upstream property. Water is also available from an 8-inch Lake Oswego water main in Knaus Road along the site frontage, and the nearest existing fire hydrant is located on the corner of Knaus Road and Forest Meadows Way. And staff finds that these properties are within the urban services boundary, and future sewer and other utilities have been anticipated and planned for in the city's sewer master plan. Future roadway improvements will be prioritized and funded with the city's pavement management inventory and will also be considered in conjunction with other streets throughout the city and for future rehabilitation programming. And therefore, staff finds that the annexation is timely with regards to the public facilities and recommends approval of these two. And I understand that we would separate these in two separate public hearings for separate votes.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Resby? Okay, so we'll start by opening the public hearing on Ordinance 2873, which is the 16441 Bonaire Avenue. Is there anyone to testify? No. Okay, hearing none, I'll close the hearing. Would someone like to make a motion to enact Ordinance 2873?
I'd like to move to enact Ordinance 2873.
Second.
Okay, thank you both. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, now we'll move to Ordinance 2875, 13201 Knaus Road. Open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to testify on this application? Okay, hearing no one, I'm going to close the hearing. Oh,
Yes, Mayor, we do have the
Oh, we do.
applicant, Ben Altman, on Zoom.
they on the Zoom.
Yes, I'm Ben Altman of the Pioneer Design Group, 9020 Southwest Washington Square Road, Suite 170, Portland 97223, representing the petitioners. I really don't have anything to add to the testimony. I think the staff report covers everything. Seems like a pretty straightforward annexation. I'm available to answer any questions if you have any, but.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? No questions. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Okay, is there anyone else to testify? No. Okay, the hearing is closed. Would someone like to make a motion to enact Ordinance 2875?
Move to enact Ordinance 2875.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Espy.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Okay, next on the agenda is a study session on the wastewater treatment facility. It's a project update. We'll welcome Mr. Anthony Hooper. up, and with Mr. Hooper, I think presenting virtually, we have Mr. Lee Ward,
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
and we welcome Mr. Ward as well. And whenever you're ready,
Just one moment.
take it away.
Thank you.
Something tells me our time is lost now.
That's the other one. Yep. Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me. I'm Anthony Hooper, Deputy City Manager, and really appreciate it. This will be the 11th time that this project has come in front of the council. We started back in 2018, December, and that's when you first gave this project the green light to do a P3 procurement process, a public-private partnership. And you know, we currently have EPCOR, Foothills Water Partners, under contract. That was done back in May, and we're about at the first real milestone right now, where we've completed about 15% design and have our basis of design report completed. And I wanted to come here and kind of give you an update on what we've done since I last saw you, and kind of talk through the project a little bit. So, as you all recall, the thing that we're trying to decide here is whether to upgrade the existing Trine Creek plant that Portland currently owns and that we are a participant in. And actually, we have about 65% use of that plant, whereas Portland has about 35%. And the plant is currently old and needs to have some major upgrades in order for it to also meet some DEQ requirements. It has a permit that is an administrative extension that was from 2009, so it's been an administrative extension for a very long time. And so basically, back in 2018, we did a feasibility study that said that we think it is less costly to build new on a life cycle cost than to upgrade existing. And actually, we're finding that to look like it's true. So with that, let's go through a few other project benefits. So, you know, one thing that's really great about this project is that it is taking about 13 acres where the Trine Creek plant currently exists, and we're able to build on about 6 acres, and which allows for us to do a bunch of really cool things. One is we can make it look like a commercial building instead of looking like an industrial site, and I think that's really great from a neighborhood-friendly standpoint. Also allows for odor control. By putting it all in buildings, we can really eliminate odor, which is a huge advantage. We're currently looking at the Aquin rated technology. That's the selected technology, and it's state of the art. It's been around for about 15 years, and it is it's pretty interesting. So Lee is going to go through and show. We're going to show a quick video about it towards the end of this PowerPoint, and we're also going to talk about the technology in some detail. So I'll allow him to do that. And then this project is looking like it's going to be less costly than the upgrade option. It's still early for us. There's a lot of investigation we still need to do. And then, once again, there's a lot of environmental attributes that we're going to look at, and I will talk about those in some detail in this PowerPoint. So this is just a rough drawing. It just shows that we're able to encapsulate the main treatment plant in a building. We'll have updated renderings with color and a site plan, and when I come back to you in January. But this just gives you an idea that it's not going to look like a plant. So there's a lot of things that we're going to do as far as doing public involvement. We actually have a session coming up on October 13th. And there are many other facets, tools that we're going to use as part of our plan. So, I mean, there's everything from using Hello to social media to press releases. But then we're also, once again, have a website that allows for people to sign up, and we can give out updates through that. Like, for example, the council report was sent out via the newsletter that we have. And then we're going to have some more targeted things for people that are very, very interested. And you can see some examples of those too as well. So so here's the website. And I encourage anybody that's watching to log on to that. And if you're interested, sign up and we will send you updates. This also gives you an idea of kind of our a logo that we're going to use for this project, and that is going to live on beyond us if this project goes forward. And there's a lot of really great resources on that website and a lot of information. And there's also videos that we have there. We'll have the video of the October 13th session on this website. So if you can't make it, you can always watch it later there too. So here is a schedule of items that are coming in the future. So those are all of our public engagement kind of touch-in points that we're going to have. And as you can see, there's 5 of those. And then we're also going to come to council basically at each milestone of our project. So the next one will be when we have 30% design completed. We'll come in the 3rd week of January to show that to you and to talk through that. At that point, we'll have a lot more information. We're also, one thing that's not on the schedule, but to mention is that we're hopeful to know whether or not we got into the WIFIA program. It's the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act program through the EPA. And we should know that by the end of this month. Very hopeful, but we'll have to see whether we get there. I think we wrote a very competitive proposal for that. And once again, that program is really great in that it allows for us to get a very, very low financing cost, better than our AAA bond rating. It also allows for us, and that's on half of the project about, it also allows for us to delay some payments, delay interest, and it's low-term fixed. So it's a really great program that's out there. And then, once again, then we're, after the 30% design, we're gonna work towards 60% and then come to you in May, and that's really gonna be an important meeting. We'll kind of go over everything, including kind of definitive pricing. We'll go over the project agreement. At that point, we need to have the intergovernmental agreement done with the City of Portland. And then we'll have to be pretty far along on property transactions too at that point. And so then we'll ask you for a decision in late June, early July. And then at that point, that's the go, no go decision. So it's really not that far away. So I wanted to talk about, our projected increases. So luckily, starting back in 2011, 2012, our increases of about 3% per year, those we're actually going towards building a fund balance for this project, for the existing plant upgrades. So the council has been raising rates close to inflation in order for us to have enough rates built up in order to fund the existing plant upgrades. And the existing plant upgrades, we use that as our basis for creating this affordability threshold for the new plant, and that they needed to be similar. And I'll talk about that a little bit more because there's some caveats I want to talk about on that. But what this shows is that, once again, we have projected 3.9% increases for the foreseeable future, and that allows for us to do either the existing upgrade or the new plant. So the affordability threshold is a little complicated, but I'm going to try my best to boil it down. This is basically what we've given to Epcor Foothills Water Partners and said that you need to meet these. This is the amount of payments that Portland and Lake Oswego can give you per year. And so this is for capital, this is for ongoing, this is for everything. So the total amount over that 30-year period of time is $484 million. And that's how much, those are basically our payments that we'd give them. What's of note here is that basically, you'll notice at year 17, it starts to decrease in the amounts that we're giving. And actually, that's the point where it tips between the new plant being less costly than the existing plant. So the payments that we'd give per year is less on the new plant than we give on the existing plant. And it actually becomes a pretty sizable amount of money. I'm not telling you the exact amount of money because we're in negotiations with Epcor, and also but I can tell you it's substantial. And of that amount of money, we could use that to fund projects, like, you know, a reclaimed water project to Foothills or George Rogers. These are decisions that I'll come back to the council and ask you all to help us make. But we're gonna, part of our scope is to figure out the costs for these various items. Here is the potential site of the new plant. Now, one of the major constraints of this project is that there just isn't much contiguous land available, well, really in all Lake Oswego, but in Foothills. And so finding 6 acres is the maximum amount of land that we found that's buildable that is next to each other in all Foothills, except for, you know, the condos, but of land that there really isn't much choices. So that really does drive our decision making. And so there's not very many compact technologies options that are out there. There's really membrane and aqua narita. And we found through a study that aqua narita is the better of the choice for a lot of reasons, but energy use being a major one of those. And I'll show you some more information about that later on in this presentation. One thing that I also want to show here is that while there isn't you know, additional land for us to build a biosolids facility right away, what we could do is after we build the new plant, because we have to operate both plants at the same time, and then we demo the existing plant, and then we could build in a phase 2, a biosolids facility if we wanted to. Currently, the plan is to take our biosolids or residuals. So residuals are basically the leftover sludge at the end of the process that we have to get rid of somehow. Instead of taking it to a landfill, the plan is to take it to Columbia where they can process it and then turn it into and reuse basically the biosolids. They'll turn it into cake, what they will do, which is a way of saying it's basically a very nutrient-filled sludge that could be land applied to farms, basically, kind of like manure in a way. So it's actually trucked to Central Oregon, where it can be land applied, and Southern Oregon. And so one thing that is, we do that in a partnership with Portland. Portland actually doesn't have any other cities that would be using Columbia for getting rid of the residuals. They would do that as part of, we'd have to have an intergovernmental agreement with them on that, which we'd have to negotiate. But they've been willing to have that conversation. So one project that they're looking at is converting their, they currently have compressed natural gas that they use to fuel their different equipment and trucks. There's actually a project called Poop to Power is the name of the project. And it is going to allow for them to capture about 96% of methane and reuse it as a renewable natural gas. Yeah, and they're planning to complete that in the spring of 2022. And we'd be able to leverage that, of course, as well. Here is some potential projects that we're going to scope out and look at. One of them is to do reused reclaimed water at Foothills and or George Rogers. We'll have to look at the feasibility of both of those as different choices. Foothills, as you can tell, we have to actually run what's called purple pipe from the site to and underground it next parallel to the existing water pipes. So that kind of gives an idea of how far we'd have to run purple pipe. In very preliminary conversations with Director Anderholm, he's open to the conversation about it. So out of the project, building the facility on site is not the difficult part. The difficult part really is running the pipe, and that's the most costly part of it. But I think there's potential that we're so close to that park. Bend does that for their golf course, and I think there is an opportunity here that we should look at. And once again, to fund this would come out of not out of the affordability threshold, but in the the extra amount of money that we kind of have towards the end of the agreement. And then here is just a look at the plant. So we'd have to price out the demo and remediation. We have in our intergovernmental agreement with Portland that they would sell us this property, 13 acres, for $1. But the catch is that we'd have to remediate and demo it. And we would want to know that cost, of course, before we commit to doing that. So there's a lot of items, while we're really early in design, still only 15% design at this point. We're definitely going to look at solar panels on the roof. We've actually had a conversation with the Energy Trust of Oregon, and I think that they could fund part of that as well. And we'll leverage anything we can, actually, any grants or anything that's available to us. That's just a photo of the water treatment plant and the solar panels on the roof. So floodplain is another major issue in the foothills area. This is the 1996 flood. As you can see that you have a lot of it underwater in parts of the plant, which is right here. And then this is the site that we're looking at. So part of it you can tell is underwater, part of it is not. So a major part of this project is to fill and raise the land so that we won't have this kind of, we're gonna do a lot of flood mitigation as part of this project. And there's a lot of elements that we're currently looking at and designing, but addressing flood is a major one that we will deal with as part of this project. So it will be in a much better position. Hopefully another flood like that does not happen though anytime soon. Okay, so I ran through a lot of things. I think at this point, I would like to show a quick video about the Aquanaria technology, and then I'll turn it over to Lee Ward for him to give a quick presentation. So it's only 5 slides, and then we'll answer questions after that. Oh, great, thank you.
In our world, the availability of clean water is an ever-growing challenge. Urbanization and population growth put a strain on land usage and the environment. Water quality is in jeopardy, and treatment costs are rising. Conventional water treatment with activated sludge has been a tried and tested method for over 100 years. However, it has significant downsides, such as high chemical and energy consumption, and poor settling sludge demanding large clarifiers, resulting in a large installation footprint. In the 1990s, a professor at Delft University of Technology took on the challenge of designing the ideal water treatment technology. This resulted in the development of Noreda technology. It can be applied in new plants, but also used to retrofit existing ones. The core of Noreda technology is a unique aerobic granular sludge. All biological treatment occurs within the granules and in one tank, without the need for energy-consuming mixers, pumps, clarifiers, or complex moving decanters. Noreda wastewater treatment works in batches, consisting of 3 phases. The anaerobic fill and decant phase. Wastewater is introduced from the bottom of the reactor in a plug flow that pushes out the treated effluent from the previous batch from the top of the reactor using a fixed decanter. Organic pollutants in the wastewater penetrate into the granules and are partly transferred into storage biopolymers, while phosphate is released to the water phase. In the aerobic phase, the granular sludge is aerated. The released phosphate is taken up by the granules, and biodegradable components are oxidized. Phosphor gets removed with the excess sludge. Ammonium in the wastewater is oxidized to nitrate on the outside of the granule. Bacteria deeper in the granule use the stored organics and biopolymers to convert nitrate into nitrogen gas. After this purification step, the granular sludge settles to the bottom of the tank and is then ready to receive a new batch. Thanks to the granules, settling takes place within minutes, compared to over 1 hour in conventional activated sludge processors and SBRs. Excess sludge contains biopolymers that can be harvested and used as a sustainable resource for numerous agricultural, industrial, and construction applications. The benefits of Nareda technology are profound. Excellent effluent quality, easy operation and maintenance, significant savings in investment, energy, and chemicals, a footprint up to 4 times smaller. Existing tanks can often be retrofitted to Nareda, doubling capacity and improving treated water quality. Phosphate and biopolymers can be recovered as sustainable resources. Nareda, a proven technology that meets tomorrow's challenges in wastewater treatment.
Okay, with that, I would like to introduce Lee Ward. He is a project manager from EPCOR, and we're very lucky to have him and his team as our public-private partner. And they, in my opinion, they've been doing an excellent job so far. They have done a lot of different projects and throughout the U.S. and in Canada, and it's obvious that they really know what they're doing.
Thank you, Anthony. Mayor, members of council, and city administration, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I really appreciate it. As has been discussed, we are proceeding with investigating that new technology and confirming that it's the right choice for Lake Oswego. There seems to be more and more activity throughout the United States now with different municipalities choosing this technology. It really is coming to the fore now, and we feel very confident in the choice. I actually had a chance to talk to the municipality that installed the first full-scale plant in the United States, and that was located in Alabama. The superintendent couldn't stop gushing about how happy he is with the technology and how it's meeting permit and how it's reduced his labor costs and the operations costs that are necessary to take care of the plant. So he's very happy with his choice. And then we've just had recently another installation in Montana that's started up and is looking really good so far in terms of its ability to meet permit. I'll just share my screen if I can. All right. So I think you may have seen this before, but we came forward with Aqua Nareda as a possibility, as actually the preferred option for the plant site. And again, the 6 acres really dictated to us what technologies we could consider. But as we looked into it more and more and more, Aqua Nareda has a lot of other good features about it, and not just that it meets a small footprint. Sorry, come on now. There we go. So as you saw in the video, one of the unique things about Aqua Nareda is that in a typical wastewater treatment plant, say in a biological nutrient removal treatment plant, you have to have many different concrete basins to create the different conditions necessary for the bacteria to effectively treat whatever it is they're trying to treat out of the wastewater contaminants. Not so with Aqua Nareda. Aqua Nareda does everything in one basin. And so typically what happens is the raw wastewater comes in from the bottom of the basin. It pushes the clean wastewater out through the top of the basin. Once that cycle has been done and the clean wastewater is left, then what happens is there's air added to the bottom of the basin. So now oxygen is mixing up the the biomass that's left in the basin, the new raw wastewater. And so that happens for a short period of time. Once that's complete, the air shuts off. The biomass or the granules all settle very fast, which is one of the major benefits of Aqua Narita. That fast settling allows us to build smaller concrete basins. And so once that settling is done, then we move back to the very first phase, which is now we can introduce raw water and we can push the clean wastewater out the top again. So that's kind of the process. It's very simple, very easy, and it's all done within one basin. Now the biomass or the bacteria that we have to form in the basin, it's unique for Aqua Narita in that the same granules actually treat for all of the major contaminants of wastewater. So typically you'd have one basin removing one contaminant, you'd have the next basin removing another contaminant, and so on. Well, not so in this basin. We remove ammonia, phosphorus, total suspended solids, all of the major contaminants that you would find in wastewater, and it's all done within one basin. One of the other reasons that we really liked Aqua Narita is, not only that it has a smaller footprint, and results in capital cost savings, but in terms of life cycle and ongoing operational costs and electricity costs, those are drastically reduced over the 30-year life of the plant. And so, and that's how we like to look at things life cycle wise. Sometimes we get caught up in picking the smallest or the cheapest capital cost, and we don't pay attention to what the costs are going to be over 30 years. Well, in this case, that's what we like to do. And Aqua Narita, again, lends itself to that very, it's very much what we should focus on. So again, about 4 times less space than your regular activated sludge systems. The physical, environmental, and carbon footprint are all smaller compared to the alternate technology that we had considered, which was membrane bioreactor. It only takes about 50 to 60%, 40 to 50% of the energy that would be used at, over MBR or membrane bioreactor. Way less mechanical equipment, less piping, less pumps, less blowers, all of those things requiring electricity usage. Very simple capital and operational requirements. We can get by with less operators because it's a less complicated process. Very much less chemical usage in this type of plant versus a membrane bioreactor. When you run membranes, you have to clean those membranes every so often. And that's through things like sodium hypochlorite and acetic acid and chemicals like that, that you then have to get rid of once you've cleaned the membranes. Well, you don't have to do that with Aqua Narita. Produces a very high quality effluent, and we certainly expect it to meet the new permit requirements that ODEQ will set for us. Again, just to reinforce, when we looked at this, there are many types of wastewater treatment technologies. We eliminated a lot of them because they wouldn't fit on the site. Really came down to membrane bioreactor and Aqua Narita. And then you can see on the chart below, the footprint chart with the energy usage that's where Aqua Narita really shines and really beats the heck out of membrane bioreactor. So we're very excited by the selection of this technology. EPCOR runs facilities in a lot of different areas, and we're actually looking at Aqua Narita for some of our own facilities now. I think Anthony mentioned earlier where we've gone through the basis of design report. We've come to a point where we're pretty certain that there's no big showstoppers with Aqua Narita, and that it truly will provide the savings we're looking for in order to meet the affordability cap. So we're, again, EPCOR is very excited to be here and sure appreciate all the support from council. Thank you very much.
Just a few closing words. Our early conversations with DEQ have been going very well. We are confident that we believe that they're going to permit this technology, and they've been supportive. But there's still a long way to go. And then I should say that City of Portland has been an amazing partner. They have been very supportive and been very involved, and there are actually critical members of our team that they show up to every meeting and are very, very involved, that we really rely on their expertise and are very grateful to them. And with that, I will turn it over for any questions that you might have for either Lee or myself.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hooper, and Mr. Ward. Thank you. I have to ask, what are the medals for hanging behind you? Are those for wastewater treatment plant construction?
Actually, for my two sons who do track and field.
Oh, wonderful.
And actually, one of my sons is in his senior year in school in Colorado. So
Oh,
he's
wonderful.
running NCAA track down there.
Oh, wonderful. That's very cool. So just a question on the timeline. So what, looking at in the packet, there's a chart, visual 2, it's a council meeting schedule. What does our current agreement with EPCOR take us through on that chart? Is it all the way through the end of the process?
Yeah, it takes us to basically the June, July go, no-go date.
Okay. Okay. And then you just touched on it, I had a question about the DEQ decision, but is there a kind of a deadline by which we need that decision? That's the same date as the go, no go?
No, we will get indicators from DEQ as we go along. We will not likely have the actual permit in hand at that point, but we'll be working towards that. And to clarify, our preliminary agreement with EPCOR will be done, but we will have the opportunity to do a project agreement, which is the next stage to have, of course, EPCOR start to work towards final design and construction and all those.
So just so I understand, so will we have to give a go, no go decision without the DEQ approval?
Yes. Lee, would you mind talking to that a little bit about how much risk there is and all that? So.
Definitely. This is pretty standard in most of the projects we do. We actually, so you chose to do a progressive P3, which I think is really coming to the fore, and it's really becoming popular. It's a good way to go. But with the standard sort of design, build, finance, operate, maintain contract, the proponent never has, in none of the competitions I've ever been in, the proponent has never had the final permit in hand at the time of contract signing. What we have done, though, is we've had enough interaction with the regulator, in this case DEQ, to know that there are no big mountains to climb, and there is no reason to suspect that they're not going to issue the permit. By that time, we will have flushed out any concerns. We will have dealt with any of those concerns, and it'll be a matter of then going through their process. So, I guess there's never any risk, but it's very minimal, we feel, at that point.
Okay. And, yeah, go ahead, Councilor.
Another part of that is that we have the risk of our current plant not being permitted now. I mean, it is permitted, but we're past expiration, so
Right.
it's, this is the best path, I guess is.
Right.
If I could just add to that, one of the mandates that DEQ now has is to make sure that all of these expired permits get renewed. And so that's very high up on their list, and they're dedicating manpower, to make sure that they have enough resources and staff to work through all of those permits. And they've kind of indicated this to us, that this is high on their priority list.
So they're also working on renewing the permit on the existing facility? No.
No, they're not.
No. Because of the new, okay, okay.
We'd have to do either path.
Right, right. So so to talk about sustainability features for a second, would there be any way we could look at perhaps, it seems like we're starting in a good position having picked this particular technology. And, we know as a community, we have been a leader on many issues on the environmental front, which is fantastic. We want to continue doing that. And it looks like we're about to do so with this new project, being the first Aqua Narita project in the state. And we're very fortunate just for the circumstances that we have this land right next to the existing, it's rather, fortunate we could see ourselves in a situation where that is the only land we have, the existing site and where we'd only be able to retrofit, really. Is there any benefit in considering some type of carbon offset type of program, but one that we could reinvest here, locally, factoring that into the rates?
Excellent question. So currently we pay $25,000 or so per year for credits to offset. And the water treatment plant is it is the largest user in the city, and it's actually quite substantially larger than our plant will be. And that's the total amount that we pay to offset those. So it's not a substantial amount of money in the grand scheme of things, especially when you're talking about, this project is estimated about $150 million, so that gives you an idea of what we're talking about here. So yes, so the amount to offset would be, I think is a really good idea, a way for us, especially considering that, we would love to consider more land. There just isn't available more land that's contiguous that we could use, that's buildable on for a utility of this kind. We've looked at lots of options, and this is really the best we got. There's other choices, but they're less acreage, and so I think that's a really good way to go to get to basically net zero without just the fact that we can't do that because we don't have enough land. In Lake Oswego in order to have a site big enough to have industrial sized things that generate energy, because that's what you're talking about in order to offset.
Right, and I think we all recognize too. There's other kind of high priority potential uses down in the foothills area, like housing that also have huge environmental impact that we have to look at as well. Okay, and then my final question is, as we go into our kind of the community session on Wednesday, Mr. Hooper, to you and to the project team, what type of community feedback is most valuable at this point?
Yeah, I mean, we would, so how we're going to do is we're going to look at we're going to give a lot of information and look at different elements, whether that's the technology or sustainability. There's different sections. I would love any idea that they have. I would like to discuss and put on the table. I mean, I think at this point, I mean, there's stuff that we know we've used before, like having maybe a rechargeable vehicle station or solar panels we know, or having skylights or stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of ideas that could throw on the table that we're willing to consider. And I think I would like to, at some point, have a list of stuff to come back to you and talk it through. I think we'll put anything on the table. The problem is that there's certain things that aren't feasible, but let's discuss them and we can talk about why they are or they're not. I think at this point, we're totally open to ideas.
Okay, that's wonderful. Yeah. I want to thank you for the presentation too, just for your report and all your work on this. It's wonderful, and I want, from my perspective, you have a green light to be creative, to go forward, look for things outside the box, not just what other jurisdictions are doing. We're already moving that direction, but let's keep building on it, following our traditions of leading the way. Councilor Mance.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for the fabulous presentation. My question is kind of a crystal ballish question about the technology. There's much discussion of microplastics in our wastewater, in our oceans, et cetera, et cetera. Would this type of technology, the Aqua Narita, would that allow for capture of microplastics or not at this point in time?
I'll defer to Leah on that question.
Thank you.
Microplastics are kind of an emerging issue. There's been lots of study done, there's not a definitive sort of approach to microplastics. We will have 6 millimeter screens at the plant, so very, very small mesh, kind of tiny screens will kind of separate out most of the contaminants, the plastics and such. But there are screens that you can go down to 2 millimeters. They're developing other screens now. So today, I wouldn't say that the solution is fully developed for microplastics, but I do think that the way that the plant's being built, there will be the opportunity in the future to retrofit without tearing down and replacing entire processes. So I do think that that's something that's going to come out, something that's going to be emerging in the future.
Perfect. That's what I was looking for. Thank you so much.
That's great. Councilor Boot?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Anthony and Mr. Ward. I'm a supporter of this plant. I went and toured it. The problem I have is the comments by Ms. Adotto and Dorothy, and I just want to see how you are working with the Lake Oswego sustainability, because it's very important in every decision that we are making sure that we are catering to the environment, that we are the steward of, because why Gresham is net zero and Lake Oswego cannot be net zero? Because we are building after them, and if we have an example, why we cannot use that example to build our facility? That's, I don't know if Mr. Ward is familiar with the Gresham plant and what's the technology that's used for them to be net zero. Is it?
Yes, I can answer that. I have looked at the Gresham plant. I'm familiar with what they do there. So first of all, the Gresham plant is more than double the flow that would be coming to Lake Oswego. And they currently and previously had digesters built on the land. So they have quite a bit more land than Lake Oswego has. They get double the flow that Lake Oswego has. And so they've also started within the community a fog collection system. And what that means is that's fats, oils, and greases. They've set a program in place where they actually collect these from different restaurants, different businesses. They bring it to the plant. That's really what enables them to create the energy that they do create. They supplement the biosolids in the digesters with this fats, oils, and greases. And so by doing so, and by installing solar panels, again, to supplement, they have managed to get to net zero on energy. So when we talk about net zero, there are different aspects of net zero. And so they're not net zero on water. They still release all of their water, their treated water, back to the river. They're not net zero on solids. They still have to deal with those solids in some manner. And so, they have taken steps. They are creating electricity on site, which offsets the amount of electricity that they need to run the plant. But they do it because the scale of the plant allows them to do that. And they've introduced different programs in their community that actually, increase, that cause other issues like extra trucking and things like that. So there are trade-offs to be made and, things to be looked at. But the amount of sludge that would be generated at Lake Oswego is not enough to create renewable natural gas or to create electricity through combined heat and power without some help. So that's kind of the state of their system.
Yeah, but since Lake Oswego is using this with part of Portland, I think we might have enough sludge to do that. And if it's not the case, we talking about the land that we are using that is less than the land in Gresham, but here we have we have 13 acres. So the problem is why we are not using the 13 acres and have net zero. It's just, ideas that I have because I've been, I'm really thinking that it's very important no matter what the cost is. If it's not cost today, it will be cost later if we're not taking into account the environment, and that's,
I guess
what's
2 points. 2 points just to give you some more information and some insight. We do plan on taking our sledge to Columbia Wastewater Treatment Plant. Columbia is in the process of building a renewable natural gas system. And so they also have a land application program. And so the biosolids that we take there, so first of all, we're not creating any methane on site by doing this. We take it all to Columbia. Columbia will add it to their biosolids and it will supplement what they have so that they can create more renewable natural gas. And they also then have a land application program whereby our biosolids will be included with theirs when they go out and distribute them, to Central Oregon, to the different places that take those biosolids. So, it's not as if we're taking those to landfill or we're just wasting that resource. That resource will be used. And then the other thing I might add is that, first of all, we do have 13 acres right beside the 6, but that's in a plant that has to keep up and operating until our plant is operating. And so you can't just tear down that, part of that plant and build new. One of the options, as Anthony has pointed out, is that we are looking at setting aside 2 to 3 acres from that piece of land so that when we demolish the plant, we can actually build a biosolids facility there if that's what the community chooses to do. So we're not actually precluding ourselves from taking steps if that's the decision that's made.
And to add to what Lee said, I would encourage you to think about it slightly more globally in that by leveraging partnerships with Portland, for example, we may not be able to deal with the biosolids right on site, but we're dealing with it through Portland in order to limit the amount of environmental impacts there are. And through that partnership where Columbia has about 140 acres it's on, we're able to leverage economies of scale, which allows for us to really capture it and be very beneficial reuse through that way. Gresham site, just to give you an idea, is about 22 acres, whereas ours is 6 acres. It's massively bigger. And, for example, solar panels, help to get them there. They use 1.25 acres with the solar panels. We don't have that luxury of having that availability to do that. I would love to, we just don't. And so we really do have site constraints.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yep.
Councilor Winland.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and a couple of questions I have on the acquisition of the footprint that we want. I know there was some testing that needed to happen to see if we could actually build it there. Have we passed that?
Yep, excellent question. So yes, we have. We've completed a phase 1 environmental study and also geotechnical report. The reports come back and said that that there is, you feel comfortable enough to keep moving forward. There's still things that we're going to have to remediate as part of it, but nothing that we think is going to be overly problematic with building in that site.
And from the standpoint then, the actual acquisition of the land, is that
Yes.
Is that a process that we can fill within the time frame that we need?
Yes, so I think there's going to be more discussion that needs to happen on that we will have. Once again, if June is the date that we want to make a go, no-go, I think that's when we'd have to have known as far as what the costs are going to be and have, close, if not agreement in hand, very close to one in hand. That is our timeframe, and we're going to be working on a plan to accomplish that. So.
Okay. And then the last part is, I'm assuming that you're building this plant with the future in mind to have, it's like in my business, I'll buy a piece of machinery that has spaces or areas that I can add on to if we want to go into another process. Under the current footprint that you have, is it allowable to have extra spots without adding that 2.5 or that other 2 acres? Or in other words, is the proposed plant still have some possibility for adding on processes that may be in our future?
I'll let Lee answer that question.
Yes, certainly. So we are actually taking that future-proofing, if you will, very seriously. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're able to feed the entire peak instantaneous storm flow through the plant today, and that's the plan. And we'll be able to treat that fully. But we do have the ability to have a separate stormwater treatment train, which would lessen the load on the current plant or the main plant and allow us to take more flow and allow us to take more load should that occur sometime in the future. So we certainly feel like we have built in some buffer there. We also do have a little bit of extra land on the site, not much. And it can't be big processes, but the way things are going now, there's advances in wastewater treatment through biological means. And so typically those footprints are pretty small, and we feel that we'll be able to incorporate some of those things in the future. Not big, massive things, but considering the population of Lake Oswego is not going to grow endlessly. There's just not that much land. We think that we can manage the growth that will happen through those other means. So, it's hard to crystal ball exactly, what will happen in the future with technologies and advances, but we are trying to allow it within the design so that we can incorporate some of those should they occur.
Okay, and then the last part is, I know you talked about the operational costs are less because there's less staffing, less energy, and you made one comment about it, which I think is very important for us to know. The current process that we have, there's a lot of capital expenditure that's ongoing for replacing a lot of parts and a lot of different filters and major things that are in the sewer treatment facility that we have now, that this new system would not be needing. And I think just from an environmental standpoint of view, that's a lot of energy and a lot of capital money that's used on an ongoing basis that we don't have to invest in because of the new technology. And so, there are some definite, I know we're getting into a lot of the environmental parts, but just the advance in this technology is a huge step forward. And I'm so glad that Mr. Ward and Anthony have really dissected it to figure out whether it can be used in our application, because I think it's a big leap forward. And I think from the DEQ standpoint, I think they would love to have Lake Oswego have this as an example for the state, for other municipalities to follow. So anyway, thank you so much for all your work. There's still a lot to be done, but you've made great milestones already, so thank you.
Well said, Councilor Wendland. Thank you.
Councilor Burdick.
I too just want to thank you, Deputy City Manager Hooper and Mr. Ward, for your presentation and all the work that you've done so far in this project. And I also want to thank the Sustainability Network for coming and working with you, and the collaboration that I've seen between all of you. I think that really needs to be applauded, and I know I, for one, really appreciate that. because the environmental impact is so important and it's so critical that we do everything that we can. So I'd like to reiterate what the mayor said, and I really agree with him on this, is let's be as creative as possible and not hold ourselves. If we need to take 2 or 3 acres or even a little more, if that will make an impact, let's look at those options and let's plan for the future. And I completely understand the limitations with the 6 acres right now, but we might not have those limitations for future processes that we can put onto this plant as things change. So I can't, kind of stress enough how important it is that we do everything we can to make this as energy efficient as possible and plan for the future. And I know that's really hard to have that crystal ball, as Councilor Mans likes to call it, but it's, we really need to do our best because our planet depends on us right now. And I think, again, we can be a leader. And I just want to encourage you to continue to look at, kind of the cradle to grave of all the environmental impacts and the energy that's being used and the greenhouse gases, the building. I mean, there's so much that goes into sustainability. It's just not one little thing. So if we could just continue to do that all the way to, what type of environment are we creating for the employees who will be working at this facility. So, if we can just, continue, I guess I'm just asking you to continue to keep that in mind, continue the partnerships that we have in the community, and just let's try to be as creative as possible with that. And also, I know we talk about flooding, but, I think we also need to keep in mind, we've got earthquakes, we've got heat, we've got everything. We have so much that's kind of been thrown at us, so we just need to, again, just work, collaborate, do everything we can. And I just want to do a shout out. I'm very intrigued with the reclaimed water and how, anything we can do with that. And I appreciate you working out or reaching out to other departments at this early stage to try to, figure out, do we have barriers? What do we need to do to help reduce barriers, or, any of that? So that collaboration, again, is just a great example for all of us of how we can have projects be successful. So I don't necessarily have a question at this point because you've done such a great job, both of you. But just again, just wanted, I think, kind of just give, at least from my perspective, my permission of saying, be creative, be bold, and go out there and, again, let's help us continue to be a leader, help this be an example of a small footprint. Because I think, as I believe it was the mayor kind of referred to, there's so much in sustainability, and we do have housing that we have to look at. And the more housing that we can get and the more businesses that we can get that's close by, so we can have walkability and less transportation, that's also a positive to the environment. So again, it's such a complex issue. So if we can just keep tackling it and doing our best and working together. And I know our new, I'm not sure her title, Amanda, is she our
Sustainability Program Manager.
Thank you. And I believe that she's, spoken to you. And, again, I think if we just put these great minds together, we're going to have a great project. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Burdick. And I look forward to going in front of the Sustainability Advisory Board as well, which I know you're a liaison to. And I do want to say to the Sustainability Network and to Lisa and Dorothy that I really do appreciate their passion and ideas. And I think it's worth us looking at all different options and seeing what can work and what can't. And I were fortunate enough to be able to speak at an event that they held it was last month or so, and I thought it was really well run and feel very welcomed. So I appreciate everything you said, and we take sustainability very seriously, and we'll continue to be as creative as we can.
Thank you. All right, final comments here from Councilor Wynn.
Well, again, I just did what's all been said already, so in the sake of time, I'm not going to repeat it. But I would like to ask, I know that we're focusing so much on the plant. That's where all the water goes, and all the, from our households to our offices to our businesses, all goes there. So that's kind of the end point before it's treated. But I'd like to know, in terms of what can we be doing more on an upstream, things we can be doing in terms of businesses wise. For example, I think about, I'm in the restaurant business, and fog is a big issue with us. And so I know that I've got restaurants in different jurisdictions, and so some jurisdictions have some programs in place because they're just a more scale. But what are things we can be doing here in our city to maybe divert some of the like I mentioned, in the presentation, Mr. Ward had mentioned that some of the rainwater, for example, is diverted maybe into, so it doesn't have to go through the same process. The process might be treating, bathroom water, I don't know what to call it, but, or in the same way, maybe wastewater that has less fats, oils, and grease in it. Maybe not need to go through, may go through a more, less energy intensive process, right? So I'd like to kind of know if there's anything that we can be doing, just kind of upstream. What can we do here?
I'll start, and then Lee, if you want to jump in.
Well, actually, what I was going to say is I think we'll ask Erica if you want to hear about how we do handle fats, oils, and greases, and how we manage projects to reduce stormwater, not just at the plant, but throughout the system, which I think is what your question is too, is not the plant itself, but long before a drop of water gets to the plant. Happy to have Director Rooney come back and talk with you all about those various programs. I think actually it would be a great thing for you all to be able to talk about in the community. So if that's where you gotta go, that's where we'll go.
Could I give a 1 minute?
Of course,
Okay.
Mr. Hooper.
So I launched the Fats, Oils, and Greases program with City of Portland about 3 years ago in tandem with them. And Portland actually is one that administers and runs that program. We worked with the Chamber of Commerce to roll that out. Basically that program works with businesses to make sure that there is grease traps and other things in place to prevent fats, oils, and greases from even getting in the system. But that's all I'll say for now. I could probably talk a lot more.
Yes, we could all talk a lot more about fats, oils, and greases, and it's a really great subject, but we ought to make sure we give you a full scope and come prepared to have that conversation. I would also love to talk about stormwater because
I don't expect a full discussion on that, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to see in the context of, we're talking about reducing energy consumption. We may not be able to produce our energy at the site, but if we're able to keep other things that don't need to be treated going to the facility, that would help to save the energy as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor. Actually, it's a great question, and thank you for that opening so that we can come talk about those issues.
I use the word upstream too, if you noticed.
Well, thank you, everyone, for the great discussion. Thank you, Mr. Hooper, Mr. Ward, and the rest of the project team for the continued work, for the presentation tonight. We appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And encourage everyone here and in the community to attend next Wednesday's open house on the project. That should be great. Virtual open house, right? Yes.
Thank you, and thank you for all your support. Really appreciate it a lot.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you so much. Okay, so next on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have several items for the full council and then a board and commission appointment for the councilors. On the full council consent agenda, we have resolution 21-30, which authorizes the city manager to sign an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County for a racial research justice project. We also have our adopted findings, or our adopting of the findings and ordinance enactment for a comprehensive plan, map, zoning map, and text amendments for the Boones Ferry Road construction staging site, which is LU 21-0019. And we have approval of meeting minutes from August 3rd and September 9th. Would someone like to move approval of the consent agenda?
Move to approve the full consent agenda?
I'll second.
All right, is there any discussion?
Well, we can we?
We can, yes. Would you like to discuss?
Well, you can't, not in the,
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. And then for the councilors, we have resolution 21-33, which is an appointment to the Parks Board. We had a resignation of Alexandra Byers. We appreciate her service, and we have appointed in her place Kara Gapone. Councilor Mans and I interviewed when we had board and commission interviews earlier this year. Looking forward to her service. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 21-33?
Move to adopt resolution 21-33.
Second?
All right. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Okay, now information from council. Is there anyone that would like to make a report? Officers?
only to say we've just, several of us have just been a few days at the International City County Managers Association, which was in Portland, and I am both inspired and depressed, as usual, when I go to a conference. Really interesting conversations about the future of work in this new environment, and some reasons to be optimistic, and some reasons to realize we've got challenges ahead. And then the best news, I think, is we had a keynote this morning that talked about sort of major trends in what's happening with inner-ring suburbs, and I will say that a lot of what the author talked about are things that you can see happening here in Lake Oswego, and if those trends continue, which it looks like they will, the future's really bright for our downtown and for Lake Grove business area and for our office parks. I think we've got a lot of really, we're gonna ride the wave, but I also think the fact that you all have put plans in place in the past and we've developed the infrastructure is really gonna position us well to take advantage of those trends. So give you more of a report when I've had a chance to digest, or else I won't, because I will have forgotten everything I heard at the conference, one or the other. So,
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Okay, with that, we're going to recess the city council meeting and call to order the redevelopment agency. And our first item of board business is the 12th amendment to the Block 137 Project Development Agreement. And to present on that, we have redevelopment agency manager Sid Sin. Welcome, Mr. Sin.
Good evening, Chair Beck and members of the board. I'm Sid Sin, Redevelopment Manager for the Lake Oswego Redevelopment Agency. The question we have before the board this evening is a request from Wiser Properties LLC. They own the ground floor retail for the Windward development, specifically the retail spaces along A Avenue and First Street. And the request is to expand the uses to retail space A5, which is the space circled here in red. And the specific uses being requested to go there include financial institutions, real estate firms, art galleries, offices, including medical and dental, health, beauty, wellness, and fitness uses, as well as instructional art and art studios. As you know, a goal of the redevelopment district is to enhance the streetscape and life in the downtown area. And in order to do that, as part of this development agreement required that the ground floor retail be specific to retail and food and beverage services. And since it opened in 2018, certainly there's been some challenges. We've had COVID, growth in e-commerce, as well as the challenges of finding the right tenant for this space in this community. And given that, the board previously in 2018 and 2019 or so also approved expansions of the uses for spaces A1, which is on the corner here, through A4. And those, all four of those spaces at this time are occupied. Mrs. Weiser, representing the Weiser Properties, was approached by a business, a high-end upscale hair salon, Citrus Salon. They're out of California, and certainly they want to expand their uses here into Lake Oswego. Given the challenges of the leasing market and the proposed uses, very consistent with the ones, the four retail spaces abutting to the north, and that it's very consistent with the redevelopment agency's goal to create a vibrant downtown and economic vitality. We would recommend approval of this amendment. I do know that Mrs. Weiser is in the audience if the board has any questions of her, or no? Okay. I'm available for any questions as well.
Does anyone have any questions?
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
Unless somebody wants to do the short motion. I move to authorize the executive director to execute the 12th amendment to the August 13th, 2013 Block 137 Project Development Agreement and declaration of use covenant to allow financial institutions, real estate firms, art galleries, offices, medical and dental offices, health and beauty, wellness and fitness, instructional art, and craft studio uses for space A5 in Building A of the Windward development.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, Kim. All right. Next item of business on the LORA agenda is approval of LORA meeting minutes for April 20th, June 1st, and August 3rd. Is there a motion to approve meeting minutes?
Go ahead. No?
Don't
I move to approve the LORA minutes as written.
Second?
All right, thank you both. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. With that, this meeting of the Redevelopment Agency is now adjourned, and we are going to reconvene the City Council meeting. Our last item on the City Council agenda is an executive session. Mr. Lewis, will you please read us the protocols for going into executive session?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Lake Oswego City Council is now going to meet under authority of ORS 192.6602E to conduct deliberations with persons designated to negotiate real property transactions. This is exempt from public inspection and public view with the exception of media personnel, and no decisions will be made in the executive session. Any decisions made will be made at open session.
Okay, are we going to go into the side room?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll come back to open session after the executive session, of course. All right. Let's take a few minutes if anyone needs to, and then, yeah, just a few minutes. Okay. Okay, we are now back from executive session, and this meeting is now adjourned.